activists and lawmakers across the country have been calling for police reform. And there's one New Jersey city that seems to come up over and over again. For some people, it's a shining example of what can happen when you actively try to reform a police department, even dismantle it rather, and build it back up. So less than a decade ago, Camden was known as one of the most dangerous cities in the U.S. But now the city's police department says that it's seen a drop in crime throughout the area ever since disbanding its police force and rebuilding it. But those changes did not come without complications. So we want to bring in Congressman Donald Norcross. Congressman, you represent New Jersey's 1st District, which also includes the city of Camden. I'm really, really glad that you're here. I live in Philadelphia, so just across the city from Camden, and working in local news, covered a lot of stories in Camden. And so Camden's been thrown around a lot with this conversation, this national conversation about what should we do in terms of police reform. I think what people need to know about the decision to disband Camden to begin with did not have to do with the police culture. It started actually with a funding issue that, in a way, the Camden Police Department was almost sort of de facto being defunded because of the budget. So explain to us the factors that went into the decision to disband the police force in Camden.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. Camden is also where I was born and where I live. It's home to me. So in addition to the national model that some people are suggesting, it's very personal. Camden City, you mentioned it. It's a term we like to get rid of. It was America's most dangerous city. Nobody likes that. It had a murder rate that was almost 20 times that of the national average. The police there, quite frankly, were burnt out. The city was facing budget issues, just like so many urban centers are. But there was a cultural problem here. There was lawsuit after lawsuit for excessive force. And what happened is nearby, there were a couple of communities that were trying to come together to create one police force. And that's really what sparked the idea of creating a countywide police force. It just so happened at the same time these issues were taking place in Camden City. So what happened is, first of all, a very proactive chief back then, Chief Thompson, Mayor Red back then. I was a state senator at the time, and the governor of New Jersey, who was a Republican, still is, came together to say, how can we create a system, a police department that is of the city? It's not us versus them, community versus police, warrior, guardian, but one that truly reflects what the city needs. A safe culture from the police department and a place where they can feel safe. So they came together, and in 2013, they stood up the new Camden County Police Department. And that's important because as those new police recruits came in, they were both veterans and new, mixed together. They knocked on everybody's door to introduce themselves and say, hi, I'm the police officer. How can we help you? And those are the seeds that were planted years ago that have created a new culture, a new community policing that has come together. And that's why you saw on TV, Chief Wysocki, who is now the chief, joined the Black Lives Matter along with myself and the mayor and the community in protest of that horrible killing of George Floyd.
Congressman, it's really interesting to hear you talk about what meaningful changes you were able to implement in the city of Camden. For people who are wondering what that might look like in their city, you see a lot of chatter on social media, on cable news. People imagine that when the discussion is around defunding the police, it means that if there's a crime taking place, don't count on the police to show up because, you know, liberals or people who have an agenda want to do away with the police. Can you just explain what it means in reality, and what can other cities take away from what you were able to do in Camden?
Well, first of all, you have to convene the community because they are a part of this. They're the ones that the police are working for. But it's not about defunding. That is just a sidetrack to, as far as I'm concerned, to get people scared, to kind of show them that somehow we're not going to address the problem. It's about reinvesting in those communities. Nothing happens in a vacuum. I used to call it the three-legged stool, that it is about security, but it's also about educational opportunities for kids. It's about the opportunity for a job, economic development. So together, that makes a safer community when you feel that your kids can walk to school, a quality school, where they can get a great education, but they also need to feel as if they have a part in this economy where they can earn enough money to take care of their family. And that is really the core when we come together. It's about reinvesting. You know, back then we mandated, I was the state senator, and Paul Moriarty as the assemblyman, for body cams. You know, the culture for police back then, they did not want to wear a body cam. I call it the truth teller. And that's what we see today is for years, we've heard stories of horrible accidents, horrible incidents between police and the minority, black and brown community, but it was word against word. Now they wear body cams, the truth teller. This is what we're seeing. So now I talk to the police, they don't want to be without them because it is about the truth.
Congressman, just to sort of make it clear what happened in Camden, that the police department was disbanded. There were issues with the budget, which allowed for fewer officers to be on the street, which of course would contribute to crime, disbanded and reconstituted. So officers had to reapply for their jobs. So you've got you kept the same police chief was in place. You had some veterans, like you pointed out, you had some brand new police officers. And then there was a little bit, which offered an opportunity to shift the training and the culture. And there was a focus on de-escalation. And there was a focus on community policing. But it was sort of a decision that was made at a higher level. And you talked about the community being involved. Some of the criticism that came with that is the community felt like they did not have a say. What's your take on that?
Well, I like to look at the positive side of this. The community absolutely was involved. Obviously, the idea that city council, the mayor, the county were all part of this. The state certainly was that. But they did come together because they had a national model that they went out, no chokeholds. The things that we saw happen with George Floyd had been outlawed as part of the policy back since 13. That de-escalation has been part of their policy since 13. So that's why literally a 63% drop in murders, a 46% drop in crime overall. But the most important item is when you go and talk to the people who live there, do you feel safer? Overwhelming, the answer is yes. But you always, I have to agree with you, it's always about reviewing where you are and about improving. And that includes the community. A number of stakeholders come together. The chief, on a weekly basis now, holds a Zoom call with the religious community of Camden City, spending an hour to 3 hours each week with them, answering their questions, especially in this time of unrest. It's really important that we together can make this a better place.
And another criticism, Congressman, was that this end result was sort of union busting, or it was an attempt at union busting. Is there a police union there in Camden now? And is it the same or different than the one that was in place before?
So the FOP was a representative of the old Camden City Police Department. The FOP today is a representative of the Camden County Police Department. Yes, it is the same union, and they have a collective bargaining agreement. My life, my background is from organized labor, so I understand that at a very key level. They continued with the pension, things that you understand. But they're also, remember, one of the things that contributed is they had a 30% absentee rate on any given day. And this isn't about beating up the police, it's about focusing on the new. And there are great opportunities still, but there are still some very big challenges. Civil service really prohibits the ability of the chief to hire Camden City residents. They started a program in high school for public safety. So children who historically have not been given those opportunities are getting in high school. Then they can hire them as a what they call class 1 police officer and class 2. But then civil service prevents them from being hired in Camden City unless they go to the top of the list, which is culturally biased.
Congressman, I wish we had more time to talk to you. It really is remarkable, the turnaround that I've witnessed in Camden, and I encourage people to look closely at Camden as a case study to see, what that city was able to do well, where the hiccups were, because it truly is fascinating, and I appreciate you joining us, Congressman.
It was tough, but it must be done for the community and for our nation. We appreciate it. Take care.